Hi everybody. Today's video lesson is going to be on dividing fractions. When we divide fractions, we're going to learn about the relationship between multiplication and division of fractions, and we're going to model fraction division using pictures. Please take a second to write down your topic and your I can statement, as well as your name, date, and class period in your focus notes. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is talk about where we might encounter some real-world examples where we're dividing fractions. And the goal here is that that's going to help us to understand how fraction division works the way that it does, so we can make sense of it before we talk about a specific rule to follow to solve it. So in the real world, we will encounter fractions in a lot of different scenarios. The first and most popular is probably baking and cooking. You're going to see that a lot in word problems. You'll also encounter fractions when you are working with pizza is a common word problem example. I'm sorry. Here we go. Pizza. Really sharing anything. It could be sharing cake, sharing cookies, whatever. And then anytime that we're working with crafts, anytime we have to cut something into equal size parts, so cutting things like ribbon, fabric, etc., then you're going to be working with fractions. The reality is anytime that you have to cut anything into smaller pieces, or anytime that you're looking at measuring something into different chunks, then you're going to be working with fractions, because in real life, things are messy and things are not perfect, and so we have to work with fractions. We can't always just have nice whole round numbers as much as we would like to. So I want you to pause this video for a moment, and I want you to see if you can come up with your own word problem to demonstrate 1/6 divided by 3. So pause the video right now, and I want you to see if you can come up with your own example using one of these scenarios that I gave you on the left. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys my example. Miss Lyons has 1/6 of a cake, and she wants to share it between herself and 2 friends. What fraction of a cake will each person get? So we have a picture here where I've got 1/6 of a cake, and so I'm going to draw for you 1/6. All right, and I'm sharing my cake between 2 friends, or between myself and 2 friends. That is something we really want to pay attention to and look out for, because word problems will do this to you all the time. They'll say, oh, you're sharing it between yourself and 2 friends, and we see that number 2 and we automatically want to divide by 2, when the reality is it says herself and 2 friends, so it's actually 3. So now we're going to divide my 1/6 of a pizza, or sorry, not a pizza, a cake, by 3. So now we've got what our pizza looks like. Let's try to figure out then what fraction, I keep saying pizza, what fraction of the cake is this little slice here. Sorry. So we're trying to figure out how big this slice is. What fraction of the entire cake is it? Well, if we took the entire cake and split the entire cake into thirds, oops, sorry, that one does not want to split nicely. If we split the entire cake into thirds, then how many slices are we going to have? Well, we're going to have 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Notice that there were 6 groups of 3, right? Which means that we had 18 little slices And one of those pieces is 1/18 of the entire cake. So now we can go back to our original problem and look at this as 1/6 divided by 3 gave us 1/18. I want you to pause the video for a second here and look and see if you can figure out a relationship from how we got to from 1/6 divided by 3 and got 1/18. And then over here, I want you to explain it in your own words. Okay, so let's consider a similar scenario. We have a multiplication problem now, 1/6 times 1/3. So this is really, really strikingly similar. If we've got 1/6 of a cake, and each person is going to eat 1/3 of a cake, then look, I've drawn the same picture, right? Each person gets 1/3 of the cake. What fraction of the cake do they get? Well, the answer is still 1/18, right? Each person gets 1/18 of the cake. So really what we've found is that to multiply by something and to divide by the inverse is really the same thing. And that's important. So dividing and multiplying are inverse operations. That means that they're really the opposite operation. Dividing is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. The reciprocal, this word is really important, and we're going to come back to that in just a moment. The reciprocal means the inverse of the number that we were dividing by. So 1/3 and 3 are reciprocals of one another. I want you to pause the video for a moment now and explain how dividing and multiplying are similar and how they're different. Okay, so what is a reciprocal? Well, then a reciprocal, similar to what we said before, is really just the number that we're dividing by gets flipped upside down. So if we have 5/9, the reciprocal of 5/9 would be 9/5. To find the reciprocal of 3.5, we need to first convert it into an improper fraction. This is a mixed number, and we need to turn it into an improper fraction. So if I have 3 wholes and a half, well, that means that I have 6 halves and 1 more half, which makes 7 halves. In other words, I could do 3 times 2, 3 multiplied by my denominator, and then add my numerator. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So 7 halves then has to get flipped upside down to get my reciprocal. So my reciprocal is 2/7. All right? And my reciprocal of 1/8 is just 8. Or in other words, 8/1, which we know is just 8. Okay. So what we're saying then is we now have a rule for dividing with fractions. We know that any number divided by a different number is the same thing as multiplying by that second number's reciprocal. So for instance, to go back to our problem that we started with, where we had 1/6 divided by 3, we could solve this problem by rewriting it as 1/6 times 1/3. And this makes it much easier because we already know how to multiply with fractions. We just multiply the numerators together. 1 times 1 is 1, and my denominator, 6 times 3, is 18. All right, so now that you've seen me go over a few examples, I want you to take these 2 examples here, 3/8 divided by 1/2, and 2 1/5 divided by 3, and I want you to copy them into your notebook and see if you can solve them on your own. Thanks for listening, guys. Good luck.